Okay. Hi, and welcome to the Divine Insight Show. My name is Travis. I'm your host. I'm here with a wonderful guest, Mike Wolf, who is a self-made freedom lifestyle entrepreneur, a seasoned investor, and international speaker. He's been investing in real estate for almost 30 years and has been involved in several other entrepreneurial ventures. He's a regular contributor in the media with his extensive background in business, entrepreneurship, and real estate. His experience investing in the U.S. as a Canadian has given Mike a unique perspective on taxation and other cross-border investing issues. I'm thrilled to have him joining me today to talk about his program and the wonderful work that he does. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. It's good to see you in person. Last time we were on the phone, where was I? I even forget where I was. You were in New Zealand or something. Yeah, I love to hear where you are. Where are you now?
Today I'm actually making a rare appearance at home, which happens to be Calgary, Canada. I come back here, visit my daughter, my grandkids, but I'm only here for 5 days, and then I'm always bouncing somewhere, usually towards the equator whenever possible. So.
Well, that's really awesome. And you spend a lot of your time traveling around, learning in the work that you do. Can you share with viewers and listeners what it is that you do and how you got started in it?
Yeah, well, basically, if you were to backtrack 29 years ago, I got started in real estate investing by mistake. Super long story, but it was a really good mistake. And so now these days, I used to do real estate just for myself. And these days, I get asked a lot to teach other people, how do you make money in real estate? How do you get started? So on one side, I've got an education part of my business where I teach people different strategies, such as tax deeds, where I take them and bring them to auctions and show them how to buy properties at deep discounts. And then the other side of my business is I sell turnkey properties, meaning I've already bought them, I've already fixed them, put tenants in place, I've got my property management team in place, and we sell those to investors around the planet. But in addition to that, I used to strictly teach people how to make money. These days, I spend a lot of time teaching people how to get their time back, how to have happiness and fulfillment in their life. Because I know a lot of very wealthy people that are very miserable. And,
right.
When you're broke and you're miserable, you think, oh, once I get the money, everything's going to fall into place. Just everything's going to be great. But when you actually get the money and you're still not happy, and maybe life is even worse than it was when you were broke, then you're in really big trouble. And so I really work with people to show them how to put the money on autopilot so it comes in effortlessly and passively, and then allowing you to get your time back and do the things that are meaningful, like giving back and spending time with your family and things like that.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And I know, I talk about this a lot, and on my show, I've talked a lot about our mindset and how our thoughts can really change our realities. And as you said, the common denominator, whether you have money or not, is you and your own perspective. So if you come into the situation, even with more money, with your own set of values and expectations and stressors, that's not going to change unless you sort of change your mindset around that. And I was really excited to talk to you because I think there are a lot of misnomers around what it means to invest, and a lot of things that people are probably doing wrong or thinking about in the wrong way. And I was excited. I can't believe you have properties like all over the world, which is really amazing to me. It just blows my mind. I'm from Spokane, Washington, this small little town, and someone in my own life that's been a public servant. So I've had kind of a lower income bracket than in the private sector. I have law school loans, and, rents have gone up 20% per year for a really long time in Seattle. Incomes don't. And so I was really excited to have somebody like you with your background and experience and knowledge and wisdom to come on and to really share that. Not only with me, I think that would be incredibly helpful because maybe I'm a little bit selfish here, but at the same time, all those people that are going to be watching and listening online, I'm really excited about that. So, I don't know. I'd love to start wherever you think. What was it like your first time? It's just fascinating how you got involved in this specific business, but can you walk through a little bit about that process that you started with and how you got there?
Absolutely. So if we were to go back to when I was in grade 12, which is a long, long time ago, back in those days, I remember it was the middle of the year. I had no idea what I was going to do when I graduated from high school. And so my parents' dream for me, they were always saying, you should be a doctor or lawyer, doctor or lawyer. And that's what was in my brain. And so anybody who knows me knows I do not like blood. So doctor was off. And so by default, I decided, well, I think I'll become a lawyer. And so
Uh-huh.
I actually
Me
went to
too.
the University of Calgary. There you go. Exactly.
Okay. Right.
I got my first degree, and with that came a whole lot of student loans, as you can relate.
Right.
I remember thinking, well, before I go back and get my second degree, I want to pay these things off. And so I got a job at the phone company because a friend of mine, his mother was a manager there. And so back then it was government and union, and it paid really, really well. And so started working there, and got my credit in order, and basically bought my first home just to live in. And then my mortgage broker calls me up one day and goes, Mike, if you want, I can get you another mortgage if you want to buy another property. And at first I thought, well, why do I want another property?
Right. Right.
And then he told me, well, you put a tenant in there, they pay your mortgage for you. And, 25 years from now, your mortgage will be paid off and it's all gravy, and that'll be your part of your retirement. I go, okay, that kind of makes sense. So I bought a second property, close, literally just down the block from where I was living.
Now, how old were you at the time?
Mid-20s.
Okay.
In my mid-20s. And, I bought it, and it was meant to be a long-term hold. And probably about 2 years after I bought those two properties, the market just took off. And all of a sudden, I was still working at the phone company, and all of a sudden I was sitting on a pretty good chunk of equity. And I remember thinking, I've working 40 hours a week at something I don't really love. I was making this much. And in real estate, I made this much, and I had no idea even what I was doing. So I thought, if I do this by mistake, what would happen if I learned how to do this on purpose? And so that was the start of it. Now, unfortunately, sometimes when you get lucky, and you're in your mid-20s, your ego gets the best of you. And I just thought I knew everything there was to know about real estate. And I thought I could just keep duplicating this. And so I quit my job at the phone company. And I told my parents I'm not going back, and I'm not going to be a lawyer. They're still kind of pissed at me to this day. And but I managed to lose almost all of what I made on the next couple of deals because I didn't really have a strategy. And before that, I bought with a long-term approach and just thought, I'm going to hold on to this for 25 years. But once I got a taste of that money and the success, it's like, no, I want to do this like every 90 days. I want to figure out how to do it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I thought I could just figure it out because I thought I knew it all. And as I quickly found out, real estate is not that easy to just jump into with no game plan, unless you're planning on getting lucky, which is kind of like saying, oh, I won the lottery once, I'm going to keep winning the lottery. So, so managed to lose most of that profit on the next couple of deals. But then with the remaining little bit that I had, I got smart and I hired somebody to mentor me who was very successful at real estate investing, and basically said, listen, I'm willing to put up the cash. If you're willing to, help me, I'm willing to let's do a deal together. But I want to learn everything that you know. And, that's one of the things I teach my students these days is don't be a know-it-all, be a learn-it-all. And so I needed that very humbling experience to be open and coachable as opposed to thinking I knew everything. And had I not done that, I don't know what I'd be today. I guess I'd probably be living my parents' dream. And no offense to lawyers, but I'd suck at that. So not my thing. But in any case, that's kind of how I got in, totally by mistake. And it was a great mistake. And I'm kind of glad I had my lessons really early as opposed to now.
Yeah, that's great. So can you talk a little bit about how, it's one thing to sort of like our mindset, at least in the US, might be, oh, I just need to think about my own country. And people who can't even afford or don't think that they can afford even a first home might like that might seem so incredibly like out there, like that it would almost feel impossible. So what might be a first step that somebody, not everybody has an angel investor, a mentor that says, hey, I'm going to help provide you the equity, the down payment or whatever that you might need, or partnership. So what kinds of things could people do right now as a start to sort of think about a passive income through ownership of property?
Well, if I knew then what I know now, see, back then I was doing things just a very traditional way, save up a down payment, get a mortgage, buy a property. And these days, I know a lot of better ways to do that, because if you live in places like Calgary, where I'm at right now, or Seattle, or Vancouver, and so many places where just the entry point into real estate is so ridiculously expensive, it would be almost impossible to do it.
Right.
So lesson number one is you don't have to invest close to home. That's what I did in my first deal. These days, I don't invest in Calgary at all. But you don't have to invest close to home. You can go to a market where you're going to get the best return on your investment. And so one of the trainings that I do, as I mentioned earlier, is I take people and I show them how to buy at auctions. So in Houston, Texas, which is one of my favorite markets for a particular strategy called tax deeds, what that is, when somebody hasn't paid their property taxes in a number of years, their home will eventually go up for auction, and opening bid is basically whatever the back taxes are. So one of my students recently picked up a single family home for $7,200.
Wow.
So yes. So here, that's not even a down payment on a car, let alone a down payment on a house.
Right.
So there are different ways to get in. And let's say you didn't even have the $7,200 to get started. So one of the things I teach my students at that training is that when you have a strategy that other people don't have, if you have a knowledge in something that other people don't have access to, then it becomes really easy to raise money for it. So imagine, so some of my students, let's say they come to my event and they've got pretty much no money to get started in real estate. But then one of the things I teach them is you can go to a meetup group or any real estate investment club. And there's people that go to those meetings with cash that don't have a clue how to invest. They go to learn how to invest. So imagine you go there and say, listen, I've got, and the other thing I do is I give my students a team on the ground in Houston, so they don't have to fly to Houston every month. They just call up the team. The team goes to the auction for them and does most of the heavy lifting for them. So imagine you go to a meetup group and you say, listen, I have access to these amazing properties that are going up for auction. I've got a team on the ground that can do all the work for us. I'm looking for more capital so that we can do more deals. So if you put up the capital, my team and I will do the work and we'll split the profits. So now you've got something that, one, people can't just circumvent you, because if you don't know what you're doing at this auction, there's amazing deals and there's deals that will wipe you out financially if you don't do them right. And so I give people a blueprint so that they don't mess up. But so people can't circumvent you. They can't just go bid at the auction. They could, but they're taking a really big risk. And so now you've got the strategy where you don't have any money and somebody else has money, but they don't have a strategy. And when you do a joint venture together, now you can both make money. And so I've had students literally get into that with no cash of their own. And you don't have to do a whole lot of deals. Like that $7,200 home was worth somewhere around $100,000. So you don't have to do a whole lot of deals before you do have some capital to play with. So that's just one strategy. There's dozens of strategies that I teach my students depending on what it is they're looking to achieve. But there's a lot of ways. People often say, "Oh, I can't get started because I've got no money." Well, a bigger problem, there's people out there with no time. They've got lots of money. They've got no time. If you're willing to put up the time is much more finite. There's an unlimited amount of money out there. It's not scarce. Time is scarce. And so if you find somebody who doesn't have a lot of time, or they don't have the education, they don't have the training, and you now give them an option where you can help turn their money into more money without them having to do anything, that's a win-win. And so that's just some ideas as to how you can get started. I did not know this when I first started, so I did it the more difficult way. But if I was starting over again, I would do things a lot differently.
Wow, that's really interesting, and it made me think of. I mean, if you're able to get a home at auction for a fraction of its market value, you basically have the deed and you have instant equity, so that you could almost turn that around and use that equity for something else. Is that right?
I've seen people literally sell properties like at the auction, like they picked it up and then they sold it to somebody else. So, and I've had some of my students pick up vacant pieces of land. And then one of the people on my team, he knows a lot of builders, and literally sell that piece of land before they even left the auction. So, it doesn't necessarily have to be a long, drawn out process. And a lot of people say, oh, well, if I get the property, well, don't I have to fix it up? Well, a lot of times these properties are in pretty rough shape, but there's also a lot of people out there that want to buy fixer-uppers. So, imagine that home for $7,200. worth 100,000, let's say. So let's say you sold it for, instead of fixing up, you just sold it as is for 25 or 30,000. Well, if you can triple your money without doing any work, that is not a bad day at the auction. So you just have to, one of the things I teach people is when you don't have a lot of resources, you've got to become resourceful. And when you do that, magic happens. And especially when you're creating win-wins and helping other people. And, but there's so many ways to make money in real estate. It's just a matter of being educated on them.
That's pretty awesome. Thank you. And so can you talk a little bit about what kind of strategies that you've learned or teach? Because I was also fascinated about internationally. I was thinking, I visited Bali a couple of times, and there's something magical about that place.
Yeah, absolutely there is.
And part of me was like, wow, I wonder what it would be like to think about, purchasing property here. And it just seemed like a dream, but purchasing property, turning it into an Airbnb or something else. What kinds of strategies or tools and things can you think of regarding that international consideration that people might be thinking that might actually be more within reach than they might think?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm going to change your mindset just for a second here, because there's always a lot of people that get really an emotional attachment to doing real estate, where they like to vacation or where they hang out. And I've been to Bali many times, and I can tell you that hotel rooms there, you can stay at beautiful villas for next to nothing. And so although you can get properties for relatively cheap, also the amount of revenue is going to bring in is pretty low. And so one of the things I recommend, at least right now, is, the US is still on sale. A lot of the markets are way undervalued compared to where they could be and should be. I'm really big on Atlanta right now, and that's where my turnkey operation is. Like I said, those deals in Texas are amazing. And so what I recommend for most people is don't invest necessarily in your own backyard. If you live in Seattle and the home prices don't make any sense, the numbers make no sense, don't do it there. But if you stick to your own country, at least to start, and build up enough cash flow. So for me, as you know, I travel the world full time. I'm a nomad, but I'm not buying properties everywhere that I like to hang out. I'm buying properties where it makes the most sense. I'm making my money work as hard for me as possible. And then when that money comes in at the end of the month through all that rent that my team collects for me, I can spend that anywhere I like. So when I go to Bali, I'm staying at a beautiful villa wherever I want to stay, but it's funded by my investments that are very strategic. And so I could go and say, you know what, I like to go to Bali, so I'm going to buy one there. And I like Costa Rica, so I'll buy one there. And I like Thailand. I could potentially buy properties everywhere that I like to vacation, but it's much smarter to invest where you're going to get the best return on your money. Also, where the laws are safe and in your favor. If you go to some foreign countries, if you're buying in foreign currencies and that currency goes downhill, even if your real estate were to go up, if your currency becomes worthless, like we see in South America quite frequently, for example, where the money gets devalued, well, now you've just lost your money anyway, even though the real estate was fine. And so for me, I do the vast majority of my real estate in the United States because it's still a great bargain, but I spend my money wherever I feel like traveling. And so I'd say make your money in the US and go to Bali all you like and go to all the other places you enjoy, and don't worry about the real estate there unless it absolutely there's some specific reason why. I mean, we're such a smoking deal that it's totally irresistible. But also beware of the pitfalls of investing in foreign countries, because the governments may not be stable, the currency may not be stable, so a lot of other things. So I'm not saying don't ever do it. I'm just saying make sure you do a lot of due diligence before you get started in a foreign country. And if there's opportunities that are in your own country that are much safer, stick to that at least at first till you're playing with money that if you lose it, you lose it.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really good point, and I really appreciate that, because I would be quite naive stepping into this on my own. So that's part of why I thought it'd be great to have you on the show.
Oh,
I've been throwing money over here, throwing money in Hawaii, and not getting the return on the investment anytime soon.
Absolutely.
One of the things that you also talked about when we first did our intro, and I know about you and your work, is that you like to help people create more happiness. Now, is that a part of the real estate program and teaching and learnings that you have, or is that something else that you do?
Yeah, no, that is something I do within there. So, I get asked to speak at a lot of events. And in the old days, it was always, how do you make more money? How do you make more money? And I'm happy to teach people how to make more money. And it's actually not that difficult. But, like I said earlier, there's a lot of miserable rich people out there, and that really sucks. And I used to be one of them. So I'm speaking from experience, not hypothetically. And, if we were to backtrack, if I did this interview 15 years ago, I literally, I would have to schedule this podcast. Like, I don't even know how far out, because I was a workaholic. And, there were days where I would leave home. It would be dark out. And, I had my daughter's now almost 24. Back then she was very young. There were days where I'd leave home, and by the time I come home, it would be dark again, and I missed the entire day. I wasn't there for a lot of the events I would have liked to have been there for back in those days, but I was so busy working. And, if I knew then what I know now I'm all about passive income. How do you do something once and get paid for it over and over again, which is what you get from, buying and holding properties and having other people collect your rent for you. And also, as I mentioned, when I teach people how to go to the auction, I teach them the strategy, but I don't tell them go to the auction. I give them a team that goes to the auction for them and does most of the due diligence for them. So this doesn't become something you become a workaholic at. It becomes something that you can make money while you're sleeping, while you're traveling. I do a lot of volunteering and humanitarian work. And the reason I can do that is the money keeps coming in even when I'm, giving back. And so things that I teach are, how do you do these strategies, but how do you not turn this into something where you're working like, 12, 14-hour days, because it's so easy to get caught up in it. Because this stuff, once you get good at it, and once you start monetizing it, it takes up a lot of your time. Because if you're making a lot of money, that means you've got a lot of properties. If you got a lot of properties, it means there's things going wrong too. It's not all it's not all roses where everything works out perfectly. When you're dealing with tenants, there's going to be people that, even if they're the perfect tenant when they move in, people still get sick and they get divorced and they lose their jobs and they may not be able to pay you. And so there can be a lot of stress in this business if you don't do it properly. But if you have the right systems and teams in place, then the money comes in effortlessly. And I call it indestructible wealth. So I'm not much of a gambler, but if I were to go to Vegas tomorrow and lose every dime in my bank account, well, at the end of the month, all that rent comes in from my properties, and it would keep coming back, even if I did something really stupid. So when you get to the point where your money keeps coming in, no matter how dumb you are, and then you really have the freedom to now, have that balance in your life where you're looking after your health, you're spending time with your loved ones, you're volunteering, giving back, you're traveling to recharge your batteries, whatever it is that lights you up. You can do all that, but not if you let this stuff, and not just real estate, but any entrepreneurial venture. Usually successful entrepreneurs, at least financially successful, they're trading a lot of time to get that money. And so I love to teach people, how do you get that time back if you've already given it up? Or better yet, if you're just starting out, how do you not give up not trade that time to begin with? Just build, how to build that foundation so that you're eventually going to have, sooner than later, have something that's generating money very, very passively for you.
That's wonderful. And so you said that you have in the Houston, for example, you have a team on the ground there. Do you have a team in Atlanta as well?
I do. So in Atlanta, like I said, we're selling turnkey properties. These properties, if an investor buys one of those properties from me, they're already fixed up. They already have a tenant in from day one. There's already a team looking after it. And my investors, the reason we sold 900 in the last 7 years, the reason we've sold so many is because
900?
900, yes.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot of properties. So, but the reason is literally the investors don't have to do any work. They don't have to fix a home. They don't have to build a team. They don't have to find a tenant. The tenants don't know who they are, so they don't get calls at 2 a.m. with leaky toilets. And the one thing that happens when you are in this industry, guaranteed, every Christmas day, a furnace is going to break down. When you can't find somebody to fix it, it never fails. But if you have a team looking after it, the tenants won't be calling you. They talk to the property manager. The property manager, we have people on our team that will fix on Christmas Day, we'll go and fix your furnace when that happens. So these are things that if you do this yourself, a lot of people try to manage their own properties, and that will really stop you from scaling your business, because you can only manage so many before it becomes a burden and it becomes a full-time job. And so the whole point of getting into investing is to create freedom for yourself. And I see people doing the exact opposite. And I was guilty of that too. Like I said, I was making good money, but I had no life. My lifestyle was horrible, and my health was failing, and my marriage did fail as a result. And now I'm lucky because I get a second chance. I have 2 grandsons, and I get to spend as much time with them as I like. But when my daughter was growing up, I did not have that luxury because my business literally stopped producing money if I stopped up my time to generate that money.
Yeah, I mean, it's really true. And I think it goes against what a lot of us think we know about, then it's a belief system, really. And the belief system is I have to work hard in order to earn a lot of money. And then that creates this trajectory that says, well, if I then believe that, then the only way to get more money is to work harder or to work more, which actually isn't true. We just believe it to be true, and therefore we live that way. And this is what I see in a lot of clients who can't seem to create more wealth for themselves. And I often see that they're spinning their wheels, that they think they just have to work harder and not necessarily just to work smarter or to make more calculated decisions that support their wealth. I'm curious about other strategies in your program. Anything else that you want to share with viewers or listeners now that you think they could think about? And, one of the things that I like to do on the show is, I guess it's a little bit of cheating in that I like for people to kind of take something that they can do right now, something that they can in their life, whether that's financial, spiritual, belief system, mindset, all of that. I really love to have guests on that are able to share something concrete that people who are listening right now or watching right now can incorporate into their life and really transform how it is that they live. So with that in mind, are there anything that you'd like to share or want to share or can share with folks about the work that you do and how you can help them?
Yeah, well, I think the key is really to create passive income as early in your life as possible. And even if you don't have a lot of money to get started, there's a number of different strategies, like I said, where you can get in with literally nothing. But really, the key is to make your money work hard for you, so you don't have to, and also look at building, putting teams in place. And so, another really good strategy is something called overages. And that auction I talked about earlier, like I said, the homes start off at whatever the arrears are on the back taxes. So let's say a property opening bid was $5,000 and it sold for $50,000. So the first $5,000 that belongs to the county fair and square for back taxes. That additional $45,000 that actually belongs to the previous homeowner. And most previous homeowners don't have any clue this money is owed to them. The county makes no effort to get it to them because they want to keep it. And so another strategy that I teach my students is something called overages. And that's getting that $45,000 to its rightful owner, but taking a piece of it because these people had no idea it was coming to them. Remember, I was talking to one of my students yesterday who found an overage. Somebody is owed $600,000 from the county and they have no idea they're owed $600,000. Like, wow. So a really cool strategy though is to track down these homeowners. There's certain paperwork and certain procedures you want to follow to make sure they don't circumvent you, et cetera. And that's the stuff that we teach. But all you need is to do one or two of these to get in the game and get enough money to, really start buying properties to hold and buying and holding properties. But when I teach my students how to do things like overages, I also teach them, well, how do you build a team? You don't have to be the person sitting there, licking envelopes and sending out flyers or making the phone calls to track down these people or, going through the list, trying to find the overages that make sense. And literally, if you have enough people on your team, you could literally do the entire country because there's there's hundreds of thousands of these. There's millions of dollars every day in overages that come up. But it's just putting teams in place, letting them do the work for you. And, people work way too hard. If people that aren't invested in real estate, if you don't own real estate, you're paying too much tax. That's the other thing too. So the other tip I would say is get into real estate as quickly as you can. If you look at somebody like Warren Buffett, he openly admits that he pays less tax than his assistant does. And I don't know how much his assistant makes, but I'm pretty sure she's not a billionaire, and he is.
Right.
And he owns a bunch of real estate because he gets to bring down, he doesn't need the cash flow from real estate, and he doesn't need the appreciation from real estate. But what he does get from it is that he pays a lot less tax because you get to write off depreciation against the income that you make, no matter what business you make your income in. And so my advice would be get into real estate as early as you can, keep a lot more legally away from the government, and start getting that cash flow and that appreciation. And the sooner you do that, the sooner you can get, especially for people in the 9-to-5 world, the sooner you can get out of that. And one more piece of advice, if you are a 9-to-5 person, set up some sort of corporation. And once again, I'm not a lawyer or accountant, so disclaimer. So,
In the
so
U.S.
defer with your lawyer friends. I know one, and also your
Yeah.
accounting people. But
Well, I can say I'm a lawyer in Washington. I'm licensed in Washington. But if you're listening to the show, I'm not your lawyer, and I'm not advising you.
we're not giving legal advice or
Yeah.
financial advice or
Yeah.
accounting advice, but talk to your accountant and your lawyer about. I would set up a corporation and start doing something entrepreneurial, maybe real estate investing, maybe something else. Maybe you have another passion. But when you go to your 9-to-5 job, you use the same gas that I do, but you don't get to write it off. When I go and drive somewhere, I'm writing it off. And so anyway, those are certain little tips that I think will help people to make more money, keep more money, and potentially get their time back, because that's so important. So many people, like I wish I would have known this stuff when I was first starting, because I spent so many years as a workaholic, and I didn't even mind it most of those years because I was passionate about what I was doing. But now I look back and I think, man, I would have loved to have been there with when my daughter did this, when my daughter did that, and so you don't get that time back. So
Yeah.
seize your time back as quick as you can.
That's great. Thank you. So how can people find out more information about you and also participate? Are there's live classes? Are they web classes? I'd love for you to share information about how folks can participate and learn more about your programs and offerings.
Yeah, well, they can go to my website, which is mikewolfmastery.com. Wolf, just like the animal, WOLF, mikewolfmastery.com. And there's information on my different trainings. I do live trainings once in a while. I do a couple of trainings a year. I don't like to do too many because it's very time consuming, obviously, for me. So I'm actually creating a whole bunch of online courses as well, so that people can watch it on their own time. But in the meantime, I've got live events. Occasionally, I've also got those turnkey properties. But if you go to my website, you can find out more about what I'm doing. And if I'm a good fit for you, I'd love to help them.
That's really awesome. Thank you. And is there anything else that you'd like to add? I know you help people, create more time, create, passive income, more wealth, which all is amazing. And I just wasn't sure if there, is there anything else that you want to share about what you offer, what you do?
Yeah, well, I think the big thing really is that, money is extremely abundant. And, a lot of us have a scarcity mindset around it because we're brought up that way, that money doesn't grow on trees and all that stuff that's fed into our brain. And so, one of the things I always love to share with people is that money is a lot like oxygen in a lot of ways. Now, we never wake up and think, boy, I'm so grateful for this oxygen that I breathe. I wonder how many breaths I'm going to take today. You don't even think about it because it's so abundant. And so when you can put your money, when you make that money abundant where it just comes in automatically and there's enough every month that it pays all your bills and you don't have to worry about it anymore, then you need to focus on the things that are really important. And so I always, recommend to people that they journal the things that really light them up. And I recommend you close your eyes and just think about what you want life to look like 5 years from now. Where do you want to be living? What does your house look like? Who are you hanging out with? And not just so much in material things. I mean, I get people say, I want to have, 100 pieces of real estate. And that's great. But more importantly, what are you doing? Are you spending more time giving back to things that are important to you? Because that, to me, is where fulfillment comes from. Are you doing the things that make you happy? Having 100 homes isn't going to make you happy. It might give you lots of money. That in itself isn't going to make you happy. So think about what it is that lights you up, and then do things only that are congruent with getting you there. If you didn't put on your list of things for 5 years from now, if you didn't put that you want to be a workaholic, don't do things that are going to make you a workaholic. Do things that are congruent with your goals. And so if you say, I want to take my family to somewhere tropical, well, make sure you've got not only the finances carved out, but the time carved out for it. And so just always just remember that money is abundant. And it's just a matter of, just educating yourself on how to get it. Once you know that, you can't unlearn it. To me, making money is a lot easier. If I wanted to go broke, it'd be very, very difficult because the money would keep coming in. Even if I tried to lose it, it would keep coming in. And so there's strategies for that. And everything that I've done is duplicatable. There's nothing that I guarantee you, I'm no smarter than anybody who's watching this right now. And but it's just I made some mistakes, got humble enough to ask some people and figure it out. And now I figure, after I figure out the money part, then I figure out, well, how do I get a life? Because, having money and no life kind of sucks. So those are things you want to keep in the back of your mind, is how do I get congruent with what my long-term goals are? How do I get there? And how do I not be tempted to jump off that path and go on the wrong path and start suddenly doing things that won't lead you to your goal?
Yeah, that's really awesome. Well, hey, thank you very much. And unless there's anything else you want to add, I think we've covered everything I can think of.
Oh, well, that was great. Well, thank you for having me, Travis. And it's been a pleasure being here.
Yeah, thank you so much, and have a great week, everyone. And take care. This has been the Divine Insight Show.